Well, she's usually the one that asks the hard questions. She's the one that usually does the interviewing, the one that hosts the features. Now the role is going to be flipped. I get to spotlight her. It's Mirin Fader on Twitter at Mirin Fader, an up and coming star with The Ringer. Her work is all over the place and is really an up and coming star, as I said, in the sports media game. I'm Bryan Fenley, a national anchor for Fox Sports Radio. I'm on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. And it is so much fun to dive into these careers of rising stars in the game. And Mirin is certainly there and has so many amazing things in front of her. First of all, Mirin, thank you for doing this. You're a very busy person, so it means a whole lot to get a couple minutes of your time. And I wanted to start here. Over all the pieces that you've written, what's been the most difficult one to pen because of an emotional reaction it had with you?
Well, thank you so much for the kind words. That was so nice of you. I don't know how I'm gonna follow that up, but I would think the story on Gigi Bryant. I mean, that was so hard to write. I cried writing that story. I think that it's just really hard to write about grief while people are in the midst of their grief. I think a lot of times with sports stories, we usually do the profile a year later, but we just felt like it was really important to get it out at that time. So that was really difficult.
The first time you got discovered as a writer, when those talents were being seen and noticed initially, what was that like for you?
Well, I was really excited for the opportunity to think of possibly getting to a Bleacher Report type of place. I remember when I got the email from them, they were like, "We're starting BR Mag. Like, we think you have potential." And I was nervous, because like my dream is right there, and they gave me a trial run. They sent me to Philly to profile Monet Davis. And so that was my tryout. And I didn't even get the job after that point. I kept freelancing for them and I wasn't hired till a year later. But I think getting that type of opportunity and chance from them, it just meant the world. I always thought, if I stay ready, if an opportunity comes, you just have to take it. You just have to stay ready. So I think that's what happened.
How young were you when you realized you got a talent and you have something special going for you as far as writing?
I definitely never ever thought that. I
Really?
still don't, yeah, I still don't look at myself like that at all. So that's so kind of you to say. I think it was more just man, I love this. It was I need this. Writing started out for me as a thing I did in my diary, and it was something I loved and relied on, but I never thought oh, I'm gonna be a writer. And then when it became something that I could actually do, and people were respecting me for that, it just felt awesome because I didn't have to change myself and turn myself into something I wasn't to do what I wanted to do, if writing was the lane that I wanted to be, it was okay to just want to be a writer. Everyone was trying to be on TV or do this or that, and I think it was just really cool to love what I do, and somebody give me a chance to do it.
Yeah, what an authentic form of self-expression, and it must be so cathartic to write these pieces as well, and then to see all the attention it brings and from all those that really enjoy your work. We're talking with Mirin Fader with The Ringer on Twitter at Mirin Fader. I'm Bryan Fenley on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. Okay, so going to your website, you told the story about playing on this fifth grade all boys basketball team. And I want to ask you, that experience, how did that sharpen your ability to deal with the rigors of sports media? What did it teach you in your pursuit of staying battle tested, believing in yourself despite challenges that came your way, where you felt like I could power through?
Yeah, I love that question because that was such a formative part for me in my story. So I did not see a girls basketball team at my elementary school. And I was like, what is going on here? Why is there not a team for me? So I literally wrote to the principal and I was like, I want to play basketball. Why isn't there a team? And then they were explaining to me there just wasn't any interest. And I was like, but I have interest.
Yeah.
And So they're like, okay, you can play on the boys team. So I show up and they all hate me. Like they're all just like, why is this girl here? Like she just started playing like last week. Like she's so fake. Like I know she got her Vince Carter's at Payless. Like I definitely think like they were just hating on me all the way. And so when I was like not backing down from them, like I was trying to prove that I belonged, that guy ended up like tackling me. In the story I mentioned on my website. So this guy, I was guarding him, and like by the way, he ended up playing Division 1 football. And yeah, he was like a very big boy. And he just ended up like pushing me to the ground, like in the midst of like a one-on-one thing. And I actually ended up in the ER. And one of my besties on the team said to me, like, you really took that hit. He was like really like proud of me, and I felt so cool that I like took this hit, even though my mom was like horrified, like, why is my daughter playing with boys, like why is she in the hospital right now? But that made me tough. And to your question finally about how that helped me, I just feel like I've always been in spaces where I'm not supposed to be. You know, I was the only girl playing on these guys teams. Now I'm like one of the few women in like sports writers out there in the locker room. And so I always think of that. It's like it just makes you tougher, and it makes you just know like, no, I belong here. Like I want to be here. Like I took that hit, you know? And so it's it's just kind of like, I don't know, it just motivates you a little.
It's a foreshadowing experience. You were a pioneer then, you're a pioneer now. Speaking of hits, what's a hit that you've had to overcome per se in your quest in making this career? An obstacle that came about that you had to overcome, and it wasn't easy, but it shaped the way you are and has helped get this career going that could have made or broken you.
Yeah, I started my career at the Orange County Register. So I was there for 4 years. But in my fourth year, we had layoffs. We had layoffs the whole time, but I had basically like survived till that fourth year. And then, um, I thought maybe maybe this could be my time, right? Even though I was the youngest, I was the only woman, I was the least paid, probably did the most work. And my boss was just like, your job's being eliminated. And that was just so that was just so hard because I really thought that was like the end of the road for me. Like, what if this is it? Like, what if nobody wants to hire me again? Like, and I was really depressed, and I was really sad because I also felt like, how are they getting rid of like the least paid person on the totem
Yeah.
pole that works, that's been like grinding for 4 years, not moving up? It was like an old boys club. And yeah, I think I was just so low for those first couple of weeks after, and I just kind of couldn't get hired after that. I was freelancing for Bleacher Report and ESPN, but not getting that, full-time opportunity. And I was just kind of like, why can't I get hired? Like, what's wrong with me that I'm good enough to freelance, but I'm not good enough to get the job? And I really had to like believe in my dream and like keep hustling and pitching. And then finally, like, Christina Tapper at Bleacher Report was like, how about going to Lithuania to profile LaMelo Ball? And it was just like the chance of a lifetime when I needed it most. I was not making a lot of money, and it was probably the darkest moment in my career. And I come back from that story and I get hired. So it changed my life.
Speaking of LaMelo Ball and the Ball family, and I saw that you also followed him a bit in Australia or did pieces on him there, and obviously he's now in the NBA, just a recent first round draft pick. What's something about the Ball family that's misunderstood by the general public? Because there's a certain perception of them and how they are, but you know a lot more, and so you see things differently.
Yeah, I think the perception is that the kids are really arrogant and loud and stuck up and mean and rude. And they're actually like so nice. Like they're actually the sweetest. Like LaMelo is such a sweet person. Like I know he's blowing up in the NBA and everyone sees how well he's doing, but and everyone's like, wow, he's so good. But for the longest, everyone really mocked him and thought he was this like really ungrateful, spoiled child. The way people talked about him was just so negative and so like passionately angry at him, because I think they saw his dad and they put that sort of personality onto him. But he's actually so kind. Like if he really knows you, he's just like, he's a hugger. Like he's just very like in Australia, he befriended everyone in every store that he went to. We would go into the coffee club, which was his favorite restaurant there, and he would just say hi to all the cooks, like in the kitchen. You know,
Wow.
it's like he'd be like, "What's up, my dude?" And I want extra syrup today, and like 'cause he's like disgusting with his pancakes. He has like two things full of syrup, which is
Oh my
I
gosh.
I told him that was gross, and he was like, "You don't know what you're missing." But yeah, I think he's just a normal kid who's lived a really unnormal life.
When you see an athlete like that, a high profile athlete, and are able to tap into them and see things about them that the general public is not able to see, given how much time you spend with him and observing his interactions with others, how, in a way, are you able to get on a level of comfort with that person, that interviewee, where you get them to unveil things about their life that maybe they've kept hidden, that they've kept silent, and then you are the one that gets to dig out these tough stories? Like, how has that been so prevalent for you in doing that and basically excavating things that had been hidden? It makes these stories that much more compelling.
Well, it's funny. My editor was like, "Are you a therapist?" And I was like,
Yeah,
"No,
exactly.
no."
Yeah.
I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, you get it's like you've read their diary," which is like something that's so nice to hear. But no, I think like the first thing it starts is like, what's your intention as a writer? Do you care about the person as much as the player? So I think the first thing is just kind of like, I'm just kind of more interested in the humanity of a story and the person. So when your intentions are that way, you don't even ask about the sport for the longest. I think you just understand that like you got to know them as a person first, and then you get to know them as a player. And I think when you show them that you're interested in their personal life, where they come from, what their mom is, what she does, how did she raise him, you're signifying to them that you care about them as a human being. And I think that they're more willing to open up to you when they see that you're not just there to get a soundbite about what team do you want to play for, or what do you think about this famous player, or what do you think about that gossip. I recently profiled Devonte Adams, and it was like 2 hours into the interview, and I was like, I forgot to ask you about Aaron Rodgers, lol. And he just like and he was just laughing. He's like, I know, that's usually the first question. And I was like, well, I'm not here for Aaron, I'm here for you. And I think like that just like it builds trust. And I think so much of long form writing is about building trust, and it's really hard to build trust with a complete stranger. So you want to come in there with your tone being empathetic, which means not that I'm on your side, but like I'm here to listen to you, I'm here to understand you, I'm here to like figure out like how did you get to this point and where do you want to go. I think it's also about just starting off on human terms, in the sense of like the first thing LaMelo and I did in Australia was go to McDonald's. And it was like, you got to try the McFlurry. And I was like, Mel, I'm 10 years older than you. I have had many a McFlurry in my lifetime. He's like, no, but it's different in Australia. They have way more cookies. And I think like that's not the point where you say, so tell me about how your dad has been very vocal and loud. That's not the point in
Sure.
time. You're just like, why do you like this McFlurry? Um, do you eat here all the time? Why, if you have a pro contract, are you eating at McDonald's? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and he's like, because I miss home, because I miss normalcy. And I think it's just a small interaction at McDonald's told you so much about where he's at in his life. And so I think that's a good example of like, if you just sort of go with the flow and you just try to learn more about a person, you will find out interesting things.
And to your point, yeah, when you ask questions that the interviewee knows you put thought into, that aren't cliche, that aren't what they hear from a regular beat writer or somebody just like you said trying to get a soundbite, then they want to think even deeper into, wow, this person really cares about me. I'm going to give them a good effort and get those great answers that you get consistently with your features. And speaking of interest in basketball players, and I know you've got a book coming out pretty soon, and I want to ask you about that. Giannis, the improbable rise of an NBA MVP. So, what spawned your desire to showcase arguably the best player in the league right now?
Yeah, well, sticking with this theme about humanity, is there not a more human story than Giannis? And I think like um books sometimes come out of stories. And so when I was with Bleacher Report, I profiled my editor at the time, Elliot Ponnell, was like, you should profile Giannis's youngest brother. Like, I think he's legit good. And, I told him I was wary about like being known as like the person that profiles like the young prospect, because I did all this stuff with LaMelo and I don't want people to think that that's all that I do, but I was like, this is interesting. Like, I wonder what it's like for him to be the fourth brother, because that's a lot of pressure. It's not just Giannis, there's like two others. And so I went and I'm at his house and Giannis is like in the kitchen cutting fruit. And I was like, I forgot how to speak English. Hello. And like it was just like an out of body experience because I didn't know he was gonna be there. And then it ended up like a story that I came in to write about the youngest brother ended up being a story about both of them. And I feel like the profile revealed as much about Giannis as it did about Alex, the youngest brother, because it showed a more vulnerable side of Giannis, the more mental side of Giannis, because all we really talk about with him is his athleticism and being a freak. And so I thought, wow, this showed a different side of him, and the reception was very nice. And so I had been looking to write a book, and I had very like many failed proposals. Either it was a bad idea by me or a good idea, just not a sellable idea, or couldn't find the right literary agent. But I had one of them found me like 6 months before that story came out.
Okay.
And he was like, we had a really good call. I really liked him. He was like the first literary agent that took me seriously. I think a lot of them were just like, I like you, but you're too young. I like you, you're on the rise, but you're not there yet. Or like, love the idea, don't think it'll sell, try again later. This was like the first guy that really believed in me.
Wow.
So when the Giannis story came out, I sent it to him and I was like, thoughts? And he was like, this is the one. So yeah, so I ended up writing that book proposal while I was in Australia for the LaMelo piece, and then finished it when I came home, and we pitched it. And that's, it's only been like a year since then, but yeah, it's hard. It's crazy. It's coming out in August. It's due in 3 weeks. So that's what I'll be doing over the next 3 weeks. And yeah, I'm so excited.
So first of all, what do you have to do in the next 3 weeks as far as putting the finishing touches on this thing?
So as of 2 a.m. today, I finished the draft.
Good for you.
So, yeah, so I finally did it. But I have to like, yeah, so I have to I want to like tweak and like, shape it up, and like I have like a couple more interviews that I got to snag at the last minute, which is nice. And just put like the finishing work on it. So yeah, it's crazy. Kind of hearing people say you're in the home stretch has been weird, because I feel like I just started because it's been fast tracked. Normally authors get like 2 years. I got 1 year. And that was because of his like free agency stuff. We didn't know what was going to happen with him at the time. So yeah, it's going to be an intense 3 weeks, but I'm so thrilled. And it's my first book. So trial by fire, so we'll see.
Yeah, and then how it that when that point comes, can those order it, and anyone that wants to get their hands on this when it first comes out, what's the best way do you know that they can do that? Online or in bookstores?
Yeah, you can actually pre-order it right now, which is crazy. It's on Amazon and everywhere else you get your books. If you want to support your like indie bookstore, it's there. It's just tell them, you'd like to pre-order it. It's funny because we announced the pre-order the day that Giannis announced that he was resigning, and
Oh,
I had,
wow.
it was literally within 10 minutes of each other, and everyone thought that I knew, but I did not know at all. It was just weird timing. And so yeah, it was like very hilarious that happened. But yeah, I would love it if people want to pre-order it. That would be awesome.
Wrapping things up, and this has been awesome, Mirin. One of the last questions I have for you is, when you look back at work you've done and you evaluate it, does your perception of your own work change over time? Like, when you first finish something, you have a certain judgment on a piece of writing or this book. And then you go back and you say, actually, I feel more like this about it, if that makes sense. Does your perception of your work change over time because of maybe how hard you are on yourself, or how much of a perfectionist you are as far as a storyteller?
Yeah, that's a great question because it for sure does. Like the amount of times that I cringe when I look back at my old work is just
I was wondering.
um, yeah, because I am hard on myself and I am a perfectionist. But I think that's good. I think it's good to cringe. Maybe cringe a little bit less intensely. Be a little bit kinder to yourself. But I think I'm working on it. It's hard to be a young writer because you grow up in front of people. So people get to see your bad early stuff and then they get to see you get better, which is nice, but it's still on the internet. And, I recently cleared off all my OC Register articles off my website. And it was such an interesting moment because I was looking back and I was cringing, but I also felt pride. Like that was where I was at that point in my life, and I think it's good to like honor your past creative selves, and just know that like you're never going to be a finished product. Like I never finish a story and I'm like, wow, that was good. I'm just like, I finish a story and I'm like, that's interesting the way it turned out, like, because you never know. Like sometimes you think something is going to be such a prevalent part of the story, and then by the time you turn it in, it's not even in the draft, or something you didn't even realize was important ended up being like the key of the whole thing. And so I'm always, yeah, I'm always like fascinated like how it turns out, but I never say good or bad. I'm just like, that's interesting. I poured my heart out into this. I hope people like it. I don't know, but on to the next. Like I think that's exciting. There's always going to be another story. Like my problem is there's not enough time to do all the
Sure.
stories that I want. But there's so many cool things out there if you just look for them.
On to the next, as far as your career landing with the Ringer, how has that platform given you the artistic flexibility to really showcase your talents?
Man, it's so cool to be there and I'm so thankful. Like we went through so much at Bleacher Report and it was really, really sad, with them shutting down MAG. And I feel so fortunate to, be at the Ringer and to be at a place where they're like, how can we take your writing and amplify it? How can we do it with other things? And like talking about potential podcast series I'm going to do is so cool because I don't even know what the heck I'm like as a podcaster, and I'm probably going to take some tips from you and like your
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
questions. So I think like it's just very cool to be in a space where I'm like doing a lot of things for the first time. Like I am going to do podcasting and I'm learning how to think about that and do that. And it's just cool to like explore my creative self in a new way, but not abandoning, of course, my love for words.
Yeah. You have such a way with words, and no wonder you're having the success that you're having. Mirin Fader, thank you so much for this. She is on Twitter at Mirin Fader. Go check out her work, everybody, on the Ringer, everywhere. Tons of stuff she has up on YouTube. The Devonte Adams piece, the Markel Fultz piece was phenomenal, which you did. I was reading some of that last night, and I encourage everybody, as you sort of charted out his struggles being a number one pick, dealing with this injury that was sort of a fluke, or in a way he didn't really know what it was. He's kind of rebounded and is still, trying to find his way. But you were so spot on with that piece. So check out all of Miran's work. I'm on Twitter at Bryan Fenley and Anchor at FSR. And Miran, I can't thank you enough for your openness to do this and your introspection into your career and what you've done, and so much more in front of you.
That was so fun. Thank you. And I mean what I said about the tips about the podcasting. So thank you for having
Hey, we're just getting started. We are now connected, and I look forward to eventually meeting you in person when normalcy kind of happens again. And you know that you have got a big fan here. All right. So anything I can do, not that I can do much because you are so well on your way, but anything, I'm here, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you.